Hey y'all, it is September 3rd. I am back for another dense update. This video here is going to take longer than 90 seconds. I won't be able to fit it into a reel on Instagram, so the full version will be up on my YouTube channel. The link is available in the caption of this video. Mike Halpin, he is the writer and creator of the Known and Knowable page on Instagram, has released today a timeline of events surrounding the tragic death of Lazar Dukic. Full disclaimer, this was a traumatic event for a lot of people, so recounting of these stories may be really sensitive and troubling for some to read and hear. I am going to get into a bit of this article and some of the major things that stood out to me. I recommend everybody go and read the full article for full context yourself. Everything included in his article is supported by verifiable fact and eyewitness testimony. It is very detailed. I'm just going to start from the top and work my way down. Prior to the start of the swim event, the judges were all assembled. 2 judges have come forward with testimony. They wish to remain anonymous. I'm just going to read some of that here for you. Judges were asked if they wanted to be a part of the run portion or if they wanted to be a part of the swim portion. And this was just by a show of hands. They were all in a group. And the judge says, they didn't ask any of us if we had any experience or anything. They didn't ask anything to the judges assigned to the run. They didn't ask anything to the judges assigned to the swim. Do you have any rescue experience? Do you have any lifeguard experience? Nothing. They didn't ask those questions. It was literally who is volunteering for the run portion and who is volunteering for the swim portion. People raised their hands. They took down names. They all left. That was it. At approximately 6:30 a.m., all the athletes are briefed at the shoreline by Dave Castro. He points to the lake and explains to them that they don't have to swim to the left side of the buoys as they were originally briefed on Wednesday at Dickey's Arena. Now they could swim from point A to point B, basically however they saw fit. Brent Fikowski and Mike Halpin have spoke about the swim course. Brent Fikowski states that his GPS watch tracked him at around 896 meters in the water. Mike Halpin takes a Google map and he shows that the swim that they took would have been around 864 meters. So not quite an 800 meter swim, maybe not quite a 900, but somewhere in between. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. The athletes take off on their run at 7 a.m. The first athlete to enter the water is Jeff Adler. He enters at 7:20 a.m. Now, according to this article, there are 6 medics in red medic shirts on paddle boards. There are 2 jet skis in the water. Each jet ski is accompanied with a driver and a passenger. The drivers are wearing red medic shirts. There is a pontoon boat with 6 people on board. 3 of them are wearing red medic shirts. 3 of them are wearing black media shirts. It is said that this jet ski right here was carrying Dave Castro, and the first athlete, Yolo Hosta, is approaching the end of the swim. He is brought back to the finish line dock where he gets off the jet ski. One of the anonymous judges has the following account that they heard over the radio. And I'm just going to read it so I don't mess it up. It says, I would say 15 minutes after the first athlete was in the water, one of the jet ski riders asks a judge over the radio if an athlete was going to withdraw from the swim, would they have to withdraw from the entire competition? The source continues on to say it was a woman athlete that was definitely in distress. This is how the person described the situation. I would say after too much time, probably 30 seconds, a minute max, she got an answer from the judge to say, yeah, if you are withdrawing, you're going to withdraw from the entire competition. So she decided to keep swimming and go on. Okay, so sometime between 7:37 and 7:38 in this article, an anonymous on-site volunteer states that she heard Ricky Garard's name called over the loudspeaker and thought, oh wow, that's a really good time for him. And just soon after, within a minute or two, Lazar Dukic's girlfriend, Anya, walks by and says something is wrong with Lazar. And she says this to one of the athlete control leaders who was walking by. The athlete control leader told her to wait, stay out of the athlete area, and that she would go check on it. So we've all seen the footage out there. We know that at around 38 minutes and 2 seconds in, just before Tia Claire Toomey is exiting the water, you can see Lazar struggling behind him or behind her. And then the camera pans away as she crosses the finish line. It pans back at about 38:06, and you see kind of that ripple effect in the water where he has gone under. Now, there is a spectator named Jessica Smith who gives a statement in this article. I'm going to read some of that for you. Jessica says, "I began screaming and looking over at my family members who were with me in a big group. Like, does anyone see what I'm seeing? At the same time, my mom is screaming. He's fucking struggling. He's drowning. I grabbed Chris, my boyfriend, who's been a law enforcement responder for the last 12 years. He was also a recon Marine prior to that. And I screamed at him, 'Someone is drowning.' My mom, Chris, and I ran down to the dock and we screamed out at the male on the paddleboard that someone was drowning. I was standing on the railing of the dock, waving my arms in the air and yelling." She continues on to say that everyone on the dock realized what I was screaming, that someone was drowning, and they also started yelling and waving at the two paddleboards. I can see the male standing on the paddleboard with his hands over his forehead like a visor as he was watching Tia approach the finish line. I knew Tia was not going to exit the water and cross the finish line before it would be too late. I knew if he kept his attention on her and didn't see us waving our arms, that we were going to lose him underwater. We needed to react quickly if we were going to have a chance at saving him, because he was already underwater at this point. This is all at the same time that the dock was sinking due to the weight capacity. Something that is brand new information. She says, "I then yell at Chris Gilmer, 'Go, babe,' at 7:38, and he immediately dives in the water and swims directly where he thinks he went under." Chris Gilmer, that spectator who jumped in the water, gives his own statement as well. It states, "I knew that a swimmer had gone underwater. We only had moments to perform a rescue. I asked Jessica again, 'Where did he go under?' She pointed to the area and screamed at me, 'Babe, he's drowning.' I decided at this point the time was of the essence if a rescue stood any chance of success. So I ran down the dock, tore off my shoes, dove in the water, and swam towards where I thought he went under. When I was about halfway to the area where he went down, I was cut off by a female paddleboarder stationed on the right side of the finish line. At this point, I noticed that she appeared to only be wearing a swimsuit, and she only carried with her paddle. She asked me who went under, to which I replied, 'I don't know, but everyone on shore saw him go under the area where we were at.' She then said, 'Okay, get out of the water.' Less than a minute later, he swims back to shore, and about 7:40, you see the same paddler paddle out to another athlete who has gone off course. That ended up being Jeffrey Adler. Also, sometime around 7:40 a.m., Games veteran David Sharonk was on site that morning. At 7:40, he says, 'I see Emma cross the finish line, so I head to the check-in entrance. I find Lazar's partner, Anya, in tears because she cannot find Lazar. She didn't see him finish, and she's worried for his safety.' Around this time, two women from the CrossFit Games staff next to me frantically explaining that they saw someone go under. They shouted out for help, but no one did anything, so that's why they had ran there. I try to help Anya pass the staff into the athlete area to look for Lazar, reminding her how great of a swimmer he is and that he's probably fine. At 7:41, a conversation amongst media teams starts between Brian Friend saying, 'I am concerned about Lazar. Hey, Joe.' At that same time, Larry Moss is saying over the intercom that Lazar Dukic is crossing the finish line, but then later corrects himself and says it was Luka Dukic who crosses the finish line. I approach Brian Friend believing I had just heard Lazar's name. He continues, 'I am concerned for Lazar. He hasn't come out of the water.' And then I express in disbelief, I being Mike Halplin, what I'm being told, I thought I had just heard his name. Brian Friend goes on to continue and says, no, he was in first place. And then at that time, Chad Mueller, content creator and partner in Be Friendly Fitness, approaches the group. Those two men walk off to the athlete area together. In the span of the next 105 seconds, 19 athletes get out of the water and cross the finish line. At approximately 7:40, swimmers are seen off course similar to Adler. The paddleboard medical personnel moves closer to the athlete to intercept and corrects the athlete course. That is later found out to be Patrick Vellner. At 7:44 a.m. on the live broadcast feed, you can see Dave Castro step into the finish line area to look out onto the water as the athletes are exiting towards the finish line. At 7:47 a.m., you can see Luka Dukic talking with Adrian Bosman. Alyssa Filiano's Instagram post said, "In the 22 minutes of swimming, I only saw one guy on the paddle and then nothing until the end. I wanted to be so happy at the finish line because I had actually made it. But I was only angry that when I needed help in the water, nobody from the organization was there." Now, we know from Justin Medeiros' YouTube channel that his mother and his sister also saw what was taking place. They also make a statement here. I'm just going to read that for you as well. "I knew we had to reach someone, so my daughter and I started running to try to reach the other side and in an effort to reach anyone. There was a man in an easy up tent at the top of the boat ramp on our side, but he had said no communication devices on him. The crowd was too deep all the way around the section off area. I could not see anyone that worked for CrossFit. I knew we had to get to the other side, so I just kept yelling, 'I need CrossFit staff, I need CrossFit staff,' in search of anyone from staff or media. I never saw anyone that worked as a volunteer for CrossFit." The next series of events from her in the statement occurred 8 to 10 minutes after Justin Medeiros had already finished his swim, so approximately 40 minutes in. From Shannon Medeiros, "We went over a barrier and then we were in the athlete area where the white tents had started. Ironically, the first person I saw was my son. Still no CrossFit employees or volunteers. We were hysterical. He was startled. He asked, 'Mom, what's wrong?' And I said, 'Someone drowned and is still in the water in front of the boat ramp.' He asked, 'Are you sure?' I said, 99%, yes, I'm sure.' And then he walked away straight down to the boat ramp area." It goes on to say that Miss Medeiros and her daughter Jessica were then met in the athlete area by a high-ranking game team's official member who she was unable to identify by name. She insisted that she witnessed the male drowning just past the boat dock and that her and her daughter refused to leave the area until they could confirm all of the male athletes were accounted for. The team member then responded, "Okay, stay here. If anyone asks you to leave, tell them that I told you to stay." A few minutes later, that same person returned and told her, "I've been told that all male athletes are accounted for." We found out later that not only Lazar Dukic's chip timer was not working, but neither was Henry Hapalainen. Henry reported that he lost his chip timer during the event. 7:48 a.m., friends and family of Lazar Dukic are seen down by the boat dock near Dave Castro talking to him, and then Dave Castro leaves and heads towards the athlete area. At approximately 7:49 a.m., Lazar's friends and family move back up the boat ramp as Luka Dukic is walking down from the athlete area. Luka approaches the fence line, finish line area where head judge is, and he asks, "Where's Lazar?" I am not gonna lie, y'all, this is about the time in the article I had to take a break. This one's pretty hard to see. This is Anya right here. She's blurred out, and that is Luka asking them where his brother is. At 7:52, a conversation occurs between Dave Castro and Luka Dukic and Anya. During this conversation, others from the invited media team were there. Mike Halpin was about 10 feet away from this conversation, so he couldn't exactly hear what was being said. The conversation lasted less than a minute. Shortly thereafter, both Luka and Castro walk away from the shoreline. Luka is then seen in one of the coal tubs over in the athlete area. So around 7:54 a.m., in all of the confusion and chaos that is going on, one of the head judges run down to the media area and states that Lazar's chip timer came across the finish line. And then at 7:55 a.m., a minute after the head judge ran to find the family, Dave Castro and the staff of contracted event coordinators, the medical team, and all the leaders start grouping up around the finish line. Now, 7:55 a.m., I am over with my team. I have a timestamp video of my team. They are still lined up. They have announced the delay at this point, but at this point, we still don't know anything that's going on. I personally see athlete control running frantically along the bushes in search of something. We kind of joked around at the time. I was like, are they looking for alligators? Did a drone fall out of the sky? Like, what are they looking for? And then later find out they're looking in hopes that maybe he had swam over into the cove. And at 7:56 a.m., the last athlete, rookie Kyra Milligan, exits the water. And then I remember hearing down as they're searching, the MC announces team athletes will be starting their event at 8:05. And that's also confirmed in this article. And then 7:59, you can see this group here. That's Dave Castro, that's the head of the medical team, and that is the head of the judging team, all having a conversation around the shoreline. Shortly thereafter, one of Lazar's coaches from ATP Lab approaches this group and says, "We must go, we must find him." And then, as reported in all of the news outlets, at 8 a.m., the call is made to the police department. At 8:02 a.m., 2 Fort Worth police officers arrive on bicycles where the CrossFit Games team members, Luka Dukic, and volunteers and coaches have all congregated. There's some more statements here from some of the anonymous volunteers. This one reads, "They asked us to leave the finish line area and they moved us to the white tent. The white tent had an open view of the lake. We couldn't leave the scene with anybody from our team unaccounted for. We needed to wait for all of the volunteers to come." They went on to explain that the CrossFit staff member told the volunteers that they shouldn't stay or look for what was occurring because as a firefighter, I've seen this before and it sticks with you. There is also the appendix from a Freedom of Information Act request that shows the timeline received by the first responders. It is very detailed. There's a lot in there. I'm not going to read through that, but you can find that in the article. The link to the full article as well as Lazar's GoFundMe page will be in the caption of this video. I just want to say in closing that as someone who is a lover of CrossFit and has been a member of this community since 2010, I don't think that any one person is to blame for what happened out there. Not the paddleboarders, not Dave Castro, not the head judges. It was a perfect storm of events, in my opinion, that led to this. And while it is extremely tragic and extremely sad, I don't think now is the time to be calling for people's heads to be fired. And I believe that we can grow from this experience. We are undoubtedly one of the greatest communities I've ever been a part of. And I know that a lot of people feel the same way. So, I don't know. Rest in peace, Lazar Dukic.